Alright, yo, this is your big moment. You've been waiting all your life. You've been practicing your whole life for this. You were on stage, they're out there. Let's go get this. Alright, check this out. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's... Oh man, Eminem makes it look so easy. Guys, what is up? Thank you for tuning in to yet another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we cover all topics health and do it in a odd, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. This week, I regret to inform you that there will be no mic drop. And I just gotta say, I mean, it looks so easy in 8 Mile. I didn't know where I could go wrong. Anyhow, you probably know by now, this week we are taking on the topic of nerves and the biological mechanisms that make us feel nervous, make us feel uncomfortable, make us sweat, feel anxious, give us those butterflies in our stomach that we just can't control. And I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about a recent experience, and I will put this down. So, a couple of months ago, I was at a technology conference where there was an executive from a Fortune 5 company, probably a Fortune 2 company, up on stage, and the only thing going through my mind, and probably the thousands of people in the audience, was reciting the lyrics of Lose Yourself. No one was focusing on what this executive was talking about. As the cameras zoomed in on her, there were several things that just took your attention away. This non-stop shake through the very tips of her fingers, an unsteady, frightened voice, and a very noticeable rash forming from her jawline all the way up to her ear. It was evident that this speaker was nervous, with all the obvious signs of nerves on display. And listen, I know I've been there before, having an uncontrollable physical reaction to a psychologically stressful situation. Guilty right here. And this brings us to the question that I want to answer, or try to answer, in this video. Why the hell do we get so worked up, physically, emotionally, every other Ali out there, over things that, quite frankly, just don't matter? And it turns out, we have evolution to thank. A nervous evolution. You know what? I should have figured that the nervous system had something to do with us feeling nervous. It turns out, us humans really don't do things anymore the same way we used to, you know, throughout evolution, where survival and reproduction were really the only games in town. Back then, we had to be on high alert and sticking close to the tribe. Food was scarce. This was all pre-Grubhub and seamless. I know, scary thought, right? By now, you've probably heard of our fight or flight response. It is our innate biological response to stressful situations. Once an imminent threat is detected, our heart rate elevates. Our immune system steps up its activity, and hormones, particularly ones associated with stress, begin to secrete, all in a evolutionary advantageous effort to mobilize energy and prepare for possible injuries. Oh yeah, and all this happens to happen automatically, without us doing anything. Our nervous system has evolved with the incredible capacity to respond to threats on survival. When presented with predators, environmental dangers, or the chance of possible injuries, our bodies coordinate a series of physiological responses that increase our chance of survival. It's really quite amazing. So let's take a look at the physiological components that are quarterbacking this effort, the key portions of the nervous system. Although this survival response requires many different biological systems working together, it is the brain and the nervous system that own the processing and signaling. Basically blocking and tackling in football terms. And for the sake of this video, we're going to break down the nervous system into 2 disparate parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. There are more subgroups of the nervous system, but for now, we're just going to focus on these 2. So the central nervous system is the control center, located in the brain and the spine. Get it? Central. It is the place where all information from the rest of our body is interpreted. Then we have the peripheral nervous system, which is subdivided into several different units. This system is made up of nerves that connect the brain and the spinal cord to sensory receptors, our organs, our muscles, and glands. The peripheral nervous system regulates both voluntary actions such as muscle movements and involuntary actions such as our heartbeat, digestion, and hormone secretion. Interesting. Now that we have the basics down on these two key parts of the nervous system, let's turn back to evolution. I mean, after millions and millions of years of it, we have to be well-oiled survival machines, right? Absolutely. Unless, of course, the threat landscape has dramatically changed. Oh. Well, to our benefit and to our decrement, if that's a word, modern day has brought about biological challenges that are way different than the ones that our ancestors faced throughout evolution. In terms of survival, now it's way more prevalent to fall victim to 21st century disease than it is a saber-toothed tiger, and modern research is indicating that the new threat landscape is heavily psychological, with us being able to trigger a survival response through a thought alone. And these thoughts, of which we can have 30 to 70,000 a day, tend to be a lot more common than any imminent physical threat. I mean, basically, when you boil it down, we are in a world that is generally safe, yet we are more stressed out than ever.
Let me hear you say, that ain't right. That ain't right.
And I was gonna ask, is this bad? But you will probably assume correctly, it is. So let's look at modern nerves. We've all been through physiological discomfort at some point in time. Discomfort that you can feel flow through your body. Your heart beats a little faster, your armpits get a little sweaty, and uncontrollable jitters arise. Whether preparing for a big presentation, being singled out in a group, listening to your incredibly ignorant coworker talk about politics, you're fake news, you're fake news, you're fake news. This feeling-driven biological response is both good and bad. And I'll tell you why. Good in the sense that it's natural to feel discomfort when you're doing something new. It's part of the human experience. And I will bet my bottom dollar that you have felt it firsthand. And magically, that discomfort disappears when you all of a sudden become comfortable with the once uncomfortable. Now, the bad stems from experiencing a chronic response from the same activity, person, or thought, thus triggering an ongoing stress response. Whether it's derived from a coworker or boss, family members, daily commute, or even less than optimal self-talk, studies have shown that both physical and psychological stress can and will activate the nervous system and create a biological waterfall effect. And if this is one of a chronic fashion, that is bad. Research has pointed out that many of the same regions that process basic survival threats also process threats to social connections. Think about it. If you are up and you are getting nervous while giving a presentation, you could very well be getting nervous and creating this stress response because you care about how others perceive you, and that is a threat to you being socially accepted. It does go that deep. Experiencing an episode of social exclusion, reliving an experience of social rejection, or negative social feedback in general, social media, can and will trigger the biological fight or flight response. A response that has evolved to be short and effective, perfect for dealing with physical threats. The problem is, many find themselves dealing with constant, typically unconscious, psychological stress. And when you combine that of it being in the chronic nature, this threat-related response increases our inflammatory activity and contributes to the development of various modern 21st century diseases and even mortality. Yes, mortality. So how you think, process, frame, and react in your daily life really does matter. It does. Things such as other people's opinion, self-talk, preset notions, optimism, and pessimism all play a bigger role than you may think. So what can we do? Mastering nerves. And here we're gonna keep it simple, and I'm gonna break it down into three main categories where I want you to focus when you find yourself getting in your own head and causing a downstream physiological stress response. All of it revolves around being aware, being present, and understanding you. First and foremost, you are in more control than you may think. These feelings, thoughts, emotions are all natural. Quite frankly, experiencing them is a big part of what makes being alive great. And we have the privilege of experiencing all of it. the highs, the lows, and the whole journey in between. We cannot control 99.999% of what happens in this world, but we can control the one true thing that actually matters: our mind. Information is just information. Thoughts are just thoughts. They're neither beneficial or harmful until they're interpreted. It's when they enter the spin zone of our mind, this data becomes actionable from a biological standpoint. And becoming a master of your domain means that you learn to spin this information in a way that serves you.
But are you still master of your domain?
I am king of the county.
So here are some helpful steps that I've found help me when I'm experiencing a nerve-wracking moment. And it happens quite a bit. So first off, practice being present. When you find yourself feeling a certain way, stop and become conscious of it. Understand that this thought, this feeling, this trigger started this waterfall of events. Next, step back and become mindful. Try and understand what the underlying cause of this feeling is. What was the trigger? What was the thing underneath the thing that got you all riled up? Next, assess. Is it truly worth feeling what you're feeling right now? Is it bringing any benefits? Is it bringing any value? Or is it just a silly overreaction that is causing you and only you physiological and psychological harm? Lastly, detach. You've identified what got you going, and now it's time to mitigate. Let it go. Go for a walk, do a little meditation, do some breathing exercises, or focus your attention to something that truly matters to you. You could do what I do and dance and sing to Let It Go.
Let it go, let it go.
No? Okay. You don't have to do that. Just a helpful tip. This is all focused around becoming a little more self-aware. And no, it's not going to happen overnight, and you shouldn't expect it to happen overnight. These are deep, innate biological systems at play. But once you become aware, once you become conscious of what's happening, how your body's responding to these pretty meaningless, in the grand scheme of things, social situations, you will be able to hack your way around it. And my golly, you will be healthier and happier because of it. Trust me. And listen, you're never gonna bat 1,000. It's just not gonna happen. But each time you pause, you stop, you assess and intervene, a thought that is about to get you on a physiological roller coaster, that's a win. And the more you practice, the more you become self-aware, the wins begin to pile up. You get better at understanding your biological and psychological self and reverse engineering this situation and spinning it off in a way that is beneficial to you. We all have to accept our thoughts affect us biologically. The question becomes, are you gonna use it as an advantage, or are you gonna keep getting bossed around by your subconscious you? Ball's in your court. Now it's time for the mic drop.